Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the December 10th school committee meeting. We're going to start off with something from Mr. Mullaney.
Yeah, I have some sad news to report. Kathleen Peterson, who was one of our transportation monitors, passed away on December 6th. And she was a monitor. She loved her job here. She loved the kids that she worked with. So I'd like to send our condolences to her family, and I'd ask that we just pause for a moment of silence for Kathleen. Thank you. I haven't seen anything on arrangements or anything like that, but when we have those, we'll get those out to the people who work with Kathleen here in the schools. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start by taking attendance now. I am here. Ms. Canistrari is not here tonight. Mr. Conroy?
Here.
Ms. Gibbons is also not here tonight. And Mr. Powers?
Here.
Superintendent Mullaney?
Here.
And Mr. Wiggin?
Here.
Our Director of Finance and Human Resources here. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee meeting minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public Schools website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name names, students, staff, or parents. All topics for discussion must be limited to those listed on this evening's agenda, and all comments must be directed to the chair. Has anyone signed in to open session? No. So we will begin with our student representative. Come on down. Hello, welcome.
My name is Millis, and I'm the sophomore student rep, and I'll be sharing with you guys a couple things that are going on in the high school right now. So last week we had the annual Lions Club speech competition, where students were asked to reflect on the theme of what is the best advice that you have ever received. And basically, it was truly amazing to see all the speeches from the students, and the event was overall just super heartfelt and overall amazing. It was clear that there were some people that had a very big impact on students' lives. Congratulations to Riley Sullivan, who won the speech contest with an excellent speech. The November Student of the Month were announced with the nominations in each grade. The winners for the freshmen was Kathleen Dos Santos, the sophomores Nora Doherty, the juniors Phoenix Silva, and the seniors Kaylee Heredia. All of these students did excellent in depicting what a star student in Millis High School looks like. Tomorrow we have a half day, which is a professional development day with the teachers, along with another half day on next Friday to kick off the holiday break, which will last until the 2nd of January.
I know it's nice and long this year.
Yeah,
one,
definitely. For sports, our teams have started the winter sports last week, and they're already on their way to getting ready for the upcoming games and meets. For clubs, Environmental Action has created a present wrapping station, which is located in the library, and any student or staff member is encouraged to bring in gifts that will be wrapped in sustainable materials. And finally, coming up, there's a Millis High School winter concert featuring the Millis High School band and chorus on the 18th of December, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thanks everyone for your time, and I hope everyone has a great holiday.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. All right, we have our teacher rep, Ms. Copies. Oh, nice.
Good evening. classes wrote personalized letters and poems to children's author Sharon Creech. Creech authored the book Love That Dog, which is the main focus of Module 1 in Wit and Wisdom. In this novel, a boy named Jack writes letters and a poem to his favorite author, Walter Dean Myers. So this was a great opportunity for the students to sort of emulate that model for themselves. Laura Doty has announced that they've started the Paw Post at the Clyde Brown, which is the student-driven, written, and published newspaper. I was glancing at the first issue, and it's really quite comprehensive. It's quite a feat.
Great graphics.
Yes, cartoons, trends.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my kid participates. She was very excited.
It's
Excellent.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I feel like the newspaper game has been upped this year because we've got the Paw Post now. The middle school newspaper club is in full action. Mara was here with the students after school, and then you've got the Crimson Post at the high school level. So it's kind of exciting. Sixth grade social studies students have been researching the Coast Salish culture to prepare for reading the historical fiction novel Reading the Bones by Gina McMurtry Barber. The ELA students in I guess all the ELA students are participating in Socratic seminars related to survival skills, which sounds kind of interesting. Seventh grade math students are learning how to represent proportional relationships, and the Spanish students in grade 7 are learning about the verb estar. In grade 8, civics students are still examining the Declaration of Independence, and the grade 8 Spanish students are looking at how the different holidays of winter are celebrated in the variety of Spanish cultures around the world. And of course, there was the field trip to A Christmas Carol last week, and I heard great things from the students, both the middle school students and the high school drama students that attended. Also at the middle school, the AI workshop has begun and has met a total of 4 times thus far. It's being designed and proctored by David DJ Silva for his senior project under the supervision of Mr. D, and it meets during the 1:30 UA block. So enrollees are going to include 6th grade students taking their first tech skills class, and selected and invited 6th and 8th grade students who have been identified by Mr. D. So they're focusing on the use of AI tools for research, media generation, safety, and also the ethical use of AI. So it sounds like a kind of an interesting project for DJ as well as for the students who get to partake in the workshop. At the high school, in the financial literacy class, which we have this year, the students have finished looking at cryptocurrency. So they've learned about blockchains, which are security measures to prevent fraud, crypto mining, and large amounts of energy required for the process, and some of the risks involved in investing in cryptocurrency. So Nicholas hit on most of the other fun stuff that's going on, but I will just kind of throw out there as a preview that Environmental Action Club, in addition to their sustainable wrapping station, the club president and founder, Isa Briones, is hosting a climate change conference here on February 27th as her senior project. So she is currently finalizing the registrations from schools from around the area. She has secured grant funding and keynote speakers, so I'm hoping with your permission to perhaps invite her with myself to a future meeting to tell you guys about her conference if you'd be interested. So I thought that would be kind of interesting. And in other fun senior project news, because we've got DJ, we've got Isa, Emma Powers has finalized she'll be doing a second mural in the cafeteria, also with a bit of an environmental slant. So she's been kind of focusing on sustainability as well. So she's doing that under the guidance of our local graphic artist extraordinaire, Dave O'Gara. So she'll be starting her work on that officially. Bob, you saw the sketch drafts, so she's pretty excited about that. So the senior projects are all starting to sort of coalesce and come together. And then I'll round out with, we had a great Nutcracker weekend. So we had 3 full houses. There was about 95 to 97 performers each night. Audiences were fabulous. The kids were wonderful, and I'm almost all cleaned up, so it's super exciting, and we're really excited I've already started planning next year, so pretty excited.
That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. and
It went well.
congratulations.
Thanks
That
for
was great.
supporting it. So it's just really nice to see everybody come together in such a positive way. So, any questions for this evening? All right. Well, then, I'll let you get out. I know you have more exciting things on the agenda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. All right, we have our action items to approve our meetings from our minutes from last meeting.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 26th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I don't see any time in learning.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the chair report. We're gonna talk about the MSBA update, which I will hand over to you, Bob.
Sure, we had, last Tuesday night, we had the community forum, which is an online community forum. The design team reviewed the different design scenarios and projected costs. And a recording of the forum for people who couldn't make it is now on the project website, along with other important information. And that's millisbuildingproject.com.
Can I just pause you for 1 second? I'm wondering if maybe in our newsletters, we can put that link in there for parents to access? Okay, thanks. Maybe tell Tana too. Thanks. Sorry.
And then, I don't know if there's anything else you had to add about the community forum.
No, it was good.
It was good, and we had some good attendance and some new names, so hopefully word is starting to spread. And then I'd like to have middle school principal Anna Hurley and high school principal Pat Nash come up, and we can present our thoughts on the designs that were shown on last Tuesday, and our thoughts on what would be best in terms of the future of Millis Middle High School.
Yeah. These were the same designs presented at the in-person one too,
Correct.
Yeah. a
Correct.
couple weeks ago.
So, as the educational leadership of the district and of this building, we spent some time, a lot of time since last year and since Pat came on board in August, looking at the designs and, aligning that with our vision for what our students need as we move further into the 21st century. And so in looking at the design options and looking at the potential for those, we ground everything in our core values. So I'm just going to run through them quickly. We talk about them a lot here, but they really are where we center what we value about education and about teaching and learning. So, of course, our vision is that we have high academic standards. We're committed to social responsibility and dedicated to educating and inspiring every student to achieve personal excellence success. We want to develop students as independent, lifelong learners and leaders who will contribute to a complex and changing society. And our theory to get there is if honoring students as individual learners with their own learning styles, interests, identities, passions, and challenges. If we engage and challenge students through varied and culturally inclusive instructional practices and approaches that help students take ownership of their learning and foster their social and emotional growth. And if we afford them voice, choice, and flexibility in how they learn and how they demonstrate their learning, then we will get those independent, lifelong learners and leaders who will contribute. We also use as a backbone of this work the vision of a graduate for the district. It's primarily a high school entity right now, but plan is that will flow down. And I know in the middle school they're already doing things related to this vision of a graduate, and it's the 4 C's. Communication, and I'm not going to read through the whole slide, but you can see the indicators of students achieving successful completion or achievement in communication. And we have collaboration, critical thinking, and finally character. So we used these values and aspirations to ground our work here. We also did a series of educational visioning sessions from January to March of last year. And those workshops, we had about 35 members of the community. That included administration, staff, students, parents, and community members. We really had a great turnout in the spring for those sessions. And that group worked on looking at the current and future educational goals and priorities for our students and how school facility could best address those goals and priorities. From that, a group of priorities were identified, and I have those priorities here kind of summarized. And what I've done is taken the priorities that are really challenging in this building and kind of highlighted them in blue. So, the current facility makes student-centered learning challenging, real-world learning, teaming and collaboration, having a distinct middle and high school, challenges us to be innovative, practicality, flexible learning environments, agile classrooms, teaming and collaborative spaces, open spaces, breakout spaces, support spaces, display and exhibition spaces, technology, STEAM spaces, and laboratory spaces. They're all those items are challenging in our current building. And some of these other elements are as well, but these are the ones, looking at in terms of educational aspirations. And simultaneous to that work last year in the visioning groups, we developed an education plan that was approved by the committee last March. In that plan, we identified the district core values and our vision for learning. Again, that centers us. We detailed the current conditions in the middle and high school. We described the impact of those conditions on teaching and learning, and we outlined what a new facility, what kind of impact that would have on teaching and learning in both our middle and high school. And so the education plan was a 50-page document, just to kind of give you a few, to boil it down to a few key elements we'd like to share tonight. As a whole, the conclusion was that our current facility is unable to support our vision of supporting collaborative learning, fostering student agency, providing flexible classroom and gathering spaces, facilitating cross-disciplinary interaction, expanding hands-on learning, increasing powerful STEAM experiences, and fostering two distinct school communities within one building. This reality that we're experiencing now puts our students at a disadvantage, quite honestly, when they are pursuing higher education options and/or career opportunities. Our classrooms do not align well with the types of learning that are going on in colleges, or the types of work that is happening in careers where teaming and collaboration are so important. So that's kind of the overarching picture. And then Anna and Pat can talk a little bit about how this impacts the middle school and the high school.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And as Pat and I present, I think it's important to note, like, we have brought this to our staffs and kind of talked through some of these options. So as we're presenting, we're kind of presenting the collective. And this process has been amazing, going through with Tepe and Vertex, like, with stakeholders in the visioning throughout. So I feel like these options that are in front of us have been vetted by a number of groups. And the stakeholders have all had a say. So when we think about what we're about to look at, for the middle school level students, we think it's really, really important to have a distinct space. And in the current situation, we have situations where 11-year-olds are, sharing a bathroom with 18-year-olds, and we just feel like that is not the culture of a school that we're looking for. We want to recognize that students at the middle level are very different from high school students. And so as we kind of move through the options that we'll talk through this evening, we just want to underscore the importance of recognizing that a middle level student is unique and different from a high school student. And when we put together a building, we want to think about the needs of a middle level learner, where they're a bit more independent than what we have at CFB, but we're not quite at the independence level of a high school student. And so we need a lot of supervision, we need a lot of adult support, but also kind of giving them space to make good choices while we're still kind of in the background. So we'll talk about that a lot more as we move through this, but I think the biggest thing to share is that we really want to make sure our middle school students are well supported as we kind of share a building. Thank you.
Yeah, and then moving on to the high school level, and I had the privilege of working with the class of 1974 and bringing them on a tour of the building, back in the fall when they kind of were celebrating their 50th. It was interesting when I walked in with them to one of our English teaching rooms, and where they graduated 50 years ago. And they said it looks the exact same as it has, when they were there, the exact same. Even they said the desk and kind of rows and pieces like that looked very similar to that. So that really resonated with me to think about where we've come, since 74 until now, 50 years later, with the technology, with the amount of information we know, and how to best support kids and that piece of it. I think really looking at at the high school level, the amount of flexible learning space that we have, and really it was, back then it was a lot of passive learning, and now it's more, we don't want that passive learning to, kind of with information, how do we be creative, how do we investigate, how do we set up collaborative teams. A lot of the workforce now is working in collaborative teams, could be with technology, it could be in person, and oftentimes we don't have that flexibility, that agile movement among classrooms, and that's the part that really I feel like the high school level, that we're looking for. We're trying to create that in our hallways, and if you walk down the hallway any given day, you're tripping over other kids, essentially, or other kids are walking through and disrupting that teacher kind of piece of that too. So we're really trying to focus on that space, and then our spaces for special education and our English learners is really important too. So right now, there's different rooms, there's different spaces. Some of them are meant to be classrooms, and some of them are different spaces other than classrooms. And we're trying to be flexible with that and create that environment, but we all know the data behind, the environment can really set up, a student for success as well too. So just some of our individual learners and being able to kind of do some interventions and pull out quickly, at the same time be close, to that specific classroom teacher, so we're not losing time on learning. So those are all kind of the focuses at the high school that we're working on.
And then, so what we're going to do now is Anna and Pat are going to kind of go through each design that we looked at the last community forum. Honestly, we do not have any of this just flat renovations in here, the R1, R2, R3, because basically they do nothing to change. They do nothing to advance the educational plan. All they fix the windows, and
they'll have little to zero reimbursement rate from the MSBA,
Right, correct,
which
correct.
puts them, from a cost perspective, at or above some of the other options that we
from an educational perspective, they do next to nothing for us, except they would, you know, hopefully help kids in the middle school not be sweltering on warm days. And kids in the high school too, when it gets really hot. So, you know, Anna and Pat can kind of go through these next few slides looking at the different design options. So, you know, we have AR5 that kind of creates this stem wing down here. And
Yep.
if you want to
Yeah,
take it
so,
away.
so AR stands for Addition Reno, number 5, and as we go through the 3 Addition Reno options tonight, you'll see like the incremental change. So AR5 is the smallest of the additions, where we're putting on a STEAM wing full of some larger science classroom spaces and some flexible spaces off the end of the UA wing, UA being chorus, music band, or unified arts teachers. And then this would allow some of the existing science classrooms to be a little bit bigger, because it would change some of the storage configurations and things like that. But the biggest thing to notice is, whoops, sorry.
Oh,
Fran.
sorry. Tell me
That's
when you
okay.
want me
Yeah,
to
yeah.
change.
So those are kind of the big changes in terms of an addition. But I think it's important to notice that most of the white boxes that are classrooms in that L shape are really not changing much at all. So we're still kind of keeping those, my brain thinks of them as like train cars. You know, it's like teacher in a classroom, 20 feet, teacher in a classroom, 20 feet. And a lot of times it's just that narrow hallway. And we have, you know, as teaching has evolved and everybody's kind of doing group work and the workshop model, like they're breaking out into those spaces, but even in this, they would still continue to be working in hallways. And we just think, you know, that is a bit of a challenge to what we have in our vision plan for what the school could be. Thank you, Bob. So just narrowing it down to a couple bullets. AR5 will give us some larger classrooms. It will create a STEAM wing. And then there's also some flexible space within that STEAM wing, so we could move walls and have like a greater gathering space, which was a priority for us. Some of the things it doesn't address, we still have undersized classrooms for gen ed, special ed, our English learners. Things are still kind of siloed away from each other. The gym is still inadequately spaced. We don't have room for adaptive PE. And even the STEAM wing, which is exciting and new, is still kind of like a little bit off of as an island compared to where all the other action is. So that's kind of AR5. And some other considerations about AR5. So it increases the school to 135 or 36,000 square feet, but it's still not necessarily moving us to compliance with the MSBA standards for classroom sizes. It also would require 6 modular classrooms, which is an additional expense that is a little bit of a throwaway cost. You know, it's important for during the project, but we don't really get any gain out of that after the project. It really doesn't promote those learning neighborhoods that we have a great need for in the middle school, where we have our grade level teams and we really want to have little neighborhoods where special ed and EL services and breakout spaces are all kind of collected and gathered in individual spaces. Our 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders have huddle spaces, and there's a lot more flexibility to kind of achieve some of the collaborative and communication things that we've talked about this evening. I think you'll probably talk more about storage overall, of like that's a huge challenge as we look at these different projects and we think about, you know, learning and teaching in the 21st century. So that's.
Yeah, and I would add, I believe, and Mark, you probably know better than I on this, I believe those 6 temporary classrooms, those modular classrooms, I don't believe the MSBA covers those costs.
No.
Yeah, so, I mean, an additional cost that would not be reimbursed by the MSBA. And then we have design AR6, and I'll turn it over to Pat.
Yeah, so AR6, you know, offers, it seems like a little bit more than AR5. Still not everything we're looking for, but if you look at the yellow the yellow classrooms there. So those are current science classrooms. And so those would, essentially get expanded. So they basically take the storage space and try to expand those to meet the MSBA requirements for our science classrooms, because right now we don't meet those requirements for that piece. So there would be some adjustment there, a little bit of adjustment there. It doesn't sound like we would get any storage necessarily back for the design of those. So that's something that's interesting. If you go to our current gymnasium, if you go in the middle there in the red, they're essentially going to build 4 classrooms in that space, and then in the middle space there kind of be a STEAM area with some kind of flexible, learning spaces for that. So, there could be, let's say some of our engineering projects, or there could be some meetings, taking place during that time. One of the challenges of both AR5 and AR6 is this is basically being shared with the middle school and the high school. So in the different models, things that we need to think about as educators is, in AR5 and in AR6 is, how are we going to use those spaces? Do we take, for high school teachers and put them in these classrooms, right? So then that would open up some space upstairs if we move our Spanish teachers downstairs, and then the middle school there'd be some space that opens up, kind of in both those kind of models. Is that conducive to what the science teachers need in the middle school as an example? So those are things that we're thinking about. So for right now, it doesn't. It seems like it would benefit, depending on the decisions that are made, one or the other. If we talk about shared space, then we're obviously mixing middle school and high school students, which, obviously with the middle school philosophy, we're trying to avoid that kind of piece there as well. One of the things that AR6 does in blue there does offer a new gymnasium. So our current gymnasium, let's say our basketball teams get into the tournament and kind of go deep in that tournament, we're not able to host with our current gym because it does not meet the capacity. I also think, talking to the student athletes and being around them, a lot this past fall and now kind of getting winter started is, our sports teams, the kids really work hard and they pride themselves on that piece of it too. And, we're trying to get more fans out to kind of support them. And I feel like, obviously with the new gym, that's really important in giving the students a good experience around that. It was really funny to see the class, not to go to class of 74 again, but they're trying to see if their initials are still up kind of on the exhaust pipes there, where, our kids are just hoping to kind of, have a bigger crowd there where we don't have to rope off like part of the floor because our kids are spilling out onto the floor, and kind of make it more of a inviting space, for both our spectators as well as for our athletes. So the gym, is offered there. So just to kind of run through, what it does is obviously some of those science classes do increase in size, not necessarily storage. Obviously the new gymnasium there. The STEAM space that we have in the middle there, I think, is definitely, something that would be utilized. And that wing, as opposed to AR5, is more centralized in the school. So AR5, and talking to staff, it feels really isolating. Whereas at least AR6 is a little bit more centrally located on that. But once again, to talk to Anna's point, is that there is a lot of white in those classrooms, where when I'm talking about that flexible learning space among all disciplines, it's really not being addressed. And once again, our kids are spilling out into the hallway spaces. For our engineering, we were doing a catapult activity that we were walking through yesterday. And, there were some big things that were designed, and they just weren't able to essentially, trial out the experiments that they needed to do. It just wasn't a conducive space to do that. And, once again, other kids are walking through as they travel, to, either another classroom or to go get water, things like that. They're walking right through the class. So it doesn't address that flexible learning space, and really our EL learners as well as our special, education learners are not getting conducive spaces. The spaces right now are super small, and they can be, in parts of the building that really aren't, conducive to, to where, their primary teacher is or to where their assignments are. So it really doesn't address any of that piece, which I think is, for the high school level, some of the most important piece of that.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
Integrating the special ed so that kids are close to their teachers and not feeling like isolated. We've really moved towards a full inclusion model, and I think it's really important for kids to be able to pop out, get the help they need, and like really fluidly move back and forth. The other thing I wanted to say about AR6, and now it's going right out of my mind, is so based on the way the middle school schedule is set up, they have academics in the morning and then they have the UAs in the afternoon. So in the current building, we don't really come downstairs and integrate with the high school until they're going to band, chorus, art, technology, that sort of stuff. And so if we were to be sharing the science classrooms, it doesn't really work because the high school kids are having science lessons at the same time. Like the space is not alternating the same way the UAs are. So it just has limited benefit. And I think that that's, that wouldn't be intuitive to you all. So I wanted to just make sure I pointed that out. Sorry. Thank you, French.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on, just a couple of the considerations as well is once again, this would need the 6 temporary classroom space as a part of the renovation. The space for the 4 classrooms in the gym, so, you'll see when we talk about AR4A, there can be additional height in the spaces that, let's say like the example I gave was the catapult for engineering. They I believe they're gonna cap the ceilings on the current classrooms on that, so we kind of lose the space above that the gym could really benefit for some of our spaces that you'll see in AR4A. And then, once again, the storage space for the classrooms that we currently have. If you walk into many of our classrooms, there's projects going on, and they're trying to place them everywhere, gently so they don't break somebody out. It's just the other areas being untouched. I think is going to be problematic. And when we're thinking 30 years down the road, for these improvements too, I just have concerns around that.
I just have a question about the does not comply with the MSBA standards for classroom size. Like, are we like dinged for that? Like, do they want us to come up to get to that point? Like, what is the like?
My understanding is
repercussions of
there
that,
would
I guess?
there would need to be some negotiation
Okay.
with which Jeff and from Vertex and Tafe have been in conversations with the MSBA to kind of try and arrive at what would be acceptable for a science classroom. And based on some of the conversations we've had in our SBC meetings and so forth, the MSBA has a template with sizes. These spaces in AR5 and 86, in AR6, some of these spaces would be below that template. How much below is acceptable to the MSBA?
Because then it gets into class size.
Right, no, I understand.
Right.
But like, what are the like repercussions of that? Are they gonna say like, you can't choose this one because it doesn't meet standard? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what?
Right, they could ultimately say that they don't support the design because it doesn't meet their standards. But that's what, the conversations that are kind of happening now. But they haven't come out and said it has to be a minimum of, 980 square feet. They haven't said anything like that. Their template has a range, a low range and a high range. These redesigned rooms would be below the low range, but how much below they would accept is a question.
And if we chose this and we went ahead with it, they might not reimburse because it's below what their standards are? Is that a potential?
I think that could be a potential.
I think it's probably unlikely that they would outright say no, but yes, with any of these, they could kick it back and say this plan doesn't meet it doesn't meet your educational plan, it doesn't meet X, Y, and Z, go back, and then you'd have to come back with another one. But I do think that it would be, because you guys mentioned in AR5 and 6, undersized classrooms. It would be helpful moving forward, I think, if we can truly quantify what undersized means.
Okay.
Because to some people, undersized without hard and fast data on, because they're just going to say, well, what's your average class size in that room? And then they're going to go find some statistic that says, well, it's 18 per class. Well, that's fine. And now you lose. So undersized is, I get it, but it's the impact. It's the, like you were talking about, like, what can you not accomplish in these rooms? Yeah, it may be perfectly fine for a class of 18 kids and one teacher if they're all sitting at a desk and doing nothing else.
Right.
But they're undersized because of what the program and what the curriculum calls for. You can't do it in the room. That's harder for people to know, especially if you're in the class of 1974
Yeah,
and that's your frame of reference.
right.
And we're asking people to support building a project that probably doesn't meet their frame of reference.
Sure.
So to a degree, we can kind of really expand on,
Yeah,
because, as we go through, what does it not have? And again, I'm just throwing out the, like, what do we have to head off? But, like,
Sure.
I guess that's
what I was
getting at, like, what does
right, like, not,
Yeah, I can
not fitting
provide-
specials doesn't, like, that, like,
Yeah, totally
what,
get it.
what are the things?
yeah, like an example today, I was in a classroom of 22 that was lined. It was one of our English classrooms, and just looking at some of the learners, they were in rows, pretty much the entire period, but they would have benefited, from some vertical learning where they have kind of the board space around, the classroom, get up in that. But because of our rows are so, the desks, if you can move them on one side, there's still not enough space in the room to get the kids up and at them and then kind of come back to, a collaborative group where maybe they come back to rows or the flexible seating. We don't have that, able to put like those tables that kind of slide and kind of move in that current room to fit everybody. So that's where, I agree with the average numbers. I think that's an important number that people are going to grab onto.
Right.
It's just that, that agile room that now is being required, I think for, to engage our students at a high level. That's the part. It can be hard to quantify that, but I think that kind of piece is what.
Right, it's the what can't we do?
Yeah.
What, because, again, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this is
No,
just,
it's true.
Yeah.
like, because they can't move around the classroom. Okay, so they can't move around the classroom. What kind of really getting to, and I know it's hard, like, I get it, but specifically, what can't we get done in the classrooms that we have, in the setups that we have to deal with? What can't we do? That's what we need to explain to people.
Okay.
Which, again, it's harder.
Yeah.
It's not a roof leaking. It's not a,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. But
Sure.
when we're talking about kind of this difference between A4, A5, and A6, when you go to 4A and it's 20 million more than 5 and 6, it's that, it's not just, okay, you got your steam room. Okay, you got your new gym and a steam room.
Right.
Live with what you've got beyond that.
Right.
No, there's still tangible things that we can't do because all those classrooms in white are still too small. And here's what we can't
Yep.
get done.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. We definitely in the middle school feel that, a lot right now. We have classes of 26, 27. And an example to kind of answer your question is the teachers are asking for these chair-like sacks, like a pocket that sits on the back of the chair so that they can keep their different kinds of journals and tools closer to them, because it is so hard with the kids' backpack and they have their Chromebooks and all of their tools, and it's just hard on our teachers because they know what good teaching and learning looks like. They know that they want kids collaborating together and building things, and when kids can't even safely navigate the floor in the room because there are just so many bodies and materials, it changes what the learning potential can be. So we'll absolutely get you that kind of information, and visually too, because you can absolutely see the crowdedness.
Yeah.
And, you know, we always have a teacher and some support teachers. Like, there's more humans in the room trying to push in and support the kids to have this full inclusion model, and it is a crowded space, so we'll get you that.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
thank
Yeah.
you.
Just, yeah.
And that's, you know, and that's the reason why when you walk down the hallways, there's kids out in the halls, because when they go to break up into, you know, break those 22 kids up into, you know, groups of 4 or 5 kids, the room can't support
Yeah.
groups, you know, 5 groups. So 2 groups go outside, and, you know, they're trying to conduct their business when kids are passing from other classes. And, you know, it's not optimal. I think we have a great model of, you know, common space between the classrooms and the hallways at Clyde Brown, where you do have those areas in the middle that are common places where, you know, a teacher can send, you know, a couple of groups of kids out into that common area, has the ability to supervise them and also supervise the class. So these are all things that you know, more modern building attuned to 21st century learning can support. I can also get the classroom, for our class sizes, what the MSBA would say is the
Optimal.
limit
Yeah.
Optimal.
of kids
Yeah.
that they would expect in a classroom of that size. Yeah,
Okay.
we can definitely get that information.
I mean, we know that it's not optimal, so not just for us, but just for
Absolutely.
the
No,
general
and that's,
public.
you know, that's the
Right.
purpose.
Yeah.
You know, to have the people who are sure of a building project and, you know, and the people from the class of 24 or 74 who haven't been in a classroom in 50 years. And then we come to our preferred design option, and this is 4A. And in this option, there would be a new middle school wing created, and a new gymnasium, and the old gymnasium would become STEAM and adaptive PE space. If you look at the classrooms on the corner of the first floor, you see common areas between the classrooms in these areas, and different breakout rooms, adjacencies, and so forth, that would allow the type of learning that Pat and Anna were describing. It would create 2 distinct buildings, 2 distinct schools within one building, and this common space in between that can be easily accessed by both schools. Some of the ways that this addresses the middle school, I'll turn it back over to Anna.
Sure. Yeah, so this model clearly separates the middle school and high school, so we don't have the chance of middle schoolers bumping into high schoolers or sharing a bathroom. Like, they have their own spaces, and then it allows us to create grade level learning neighborhoods where the classrooms can be set up in such a way that there are those special education, EL, other support breakout spaces nearby. I also think this particular model lets us create those little neighborhoods where supervision is more readily available. Instead of having all the teachers in a row all facing like one direction, you have nooks kind of more like Clyde Brown, where you have, I would call it passive supervision, just by the nature of the way that it's designed. We're kind of around the kids. And that's a little bit what it's like parenting middle schoolers, is that potted plant parenting where they like us nearby but not too close. And I think that, you know, we can give them the flexibility of moving in and out of rooms to breakout spaces and kind of trust them with some of that autonomy that really helps them with their learning. And I want to go back and just say, you know, like, when a classroom has 25, 26 kids in it and then a couple adults, like, that is a very busy environment. And for some of our kids, they love that, right? Like they're the kids that are gonna go to a loud Starbucks and do their work down the road, right? But we have other students that's like really overwhelming. And so we need to be able to move to meet the needs of students. And I think our teachers are really there. And we're always trying to include like flexible seating in the rooms that we have now, but even that then adds to the crowding issue. So this setup really helps us kind of address a lot of those things and give the kids some independence and some flexibility to move in and out, while also like really providing everybody with the tools that they need to have the special educators nearby, that it's not, you know, an old pull-out model where kids are, you know, being taken to a different room to get services, and instead it's just like everybody gets help and everybody's learning looks different, and that's part of our culture of acceptance and belonging. You know, and just like having the kids together to create an identity in their grade level teams, like that's one of the most beautiful parts of Millis, is that it's a small school and a big family, and that these kids are together year after year after year. And so letting them develop their own identity by having these learning neighborhoods is really kind of essential to the core of who we are and what we're hoping to cultivate for our kids. The last thing I would say is, you know, in addition to kind of having all the good things in this model, in addition to having the middle school wing and a new gym, then we're still using the old gym space to have a STEAM space and like an adaptive PE. And we, in the middle school, have grade level teams, and we have a lot of meetings. We're trying to kind of build back, especially from COVID, the ability of children to be in large spaces, like to go to the theater or to sit through an assembly and have, you know, be able to kind of manage that new unstructured environment. And this would give us a space where we could pull a whole grade together, and it doesn't have to be the auditorium. And that might provide us with more opportunities for like team building exercises, or, you know, minute to win it kinds of things, like more middle school friendly community building, you know, moments for kids. So this is really exciting to have multiple resources that really rise up to meet the needs of our EdVision plan. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just from the high school perspective, you know, Bob, if you can go back to the picture there,
Sure.
You'll notice that, you know, the high school is obviously, you know, so it would be 2 levels, but it is more condensed. So right now, our Spanish teachers are, you know, there's 4 teachers up there, as well as, you know, one of our technology teachers too is up there, and to kind of pull them, they almost feel like they're on their own island, and we want it to be kind of more inclusive, because we have a lot of staff, you know, veteran staff, you know, excited to, you know, really build some interdisciplinary units, and I really feel like the school would allow us to set up, you know, space for that, if we can kind of, you know, have, you know, our own kind of building where we are. You know, like, so if you think about our science teachers right now, like there's 4 in a row. Their rooms are down a row, but you know, they're further than if they were, you know, right next to each other, kind of in like a department essentially, where they could, you know, easily kind of have great conversations. And a lot of those, you know, the thing that I like to leverage is a lot of our teachers are very talented, and the information really passes when you put them in close proximity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was a new teacher, you know, my first 2 years was upstairs away from my department. They moved me downstairs, you know, my 3rd year, and I have to say that was the biggest growth that had that quickly, and to try to set that up for our teachers too, is I think going to benefit our students, you know, on that piece. As you can see in there, that they build some of those flexible spaces off of the classrooms that we're trying to discuss, that I think are a lot more conducive to, you know, to the environment of collaboration and team, you know, building and those types of projects. Also, the storage spaces seem to be built in there, which we're talking through as well. And then talking a little bit about the STEAM lab, you know, I think, you know, in talking with some of our students, you know, that are thinking about visiting other schools too, you know, from the high school, you know, there's electives that you know, our student populations are looking for. And I think that STEAM space could provide some opportunities there down the road. You know, we may not have the staffing yet to kind of be able to do like a wood shop or a metal shop or things like that. From what I'm hearing from students, there is a demand of that. And I think we got to think, if this is a renovation that we're thinking about, like, that we want to hold for 30 years, I think we need to kind of build in those spaces to be able to bring those, things back, for our student body there too. And then just that PE space, I really think that could be a flexible space. It's a large space, that we can use different things. Just even thinking about our after-school activities between our fall play and then the Nutcracker and performance spaces and things like that, like that's also something that we need to be thinking about, because I do feel like, we are trying to get, more involvement from our student groups, and some of our student groups are getting big, like even our Active Minds Club, is about 65 students, so finding spaces like that where they can kind of, do different projects or, assignments or experiments or things like that, I think is really important to kind of be thinking about in that aspect. This also brings in the new gymnasium, which still meets the MIA requirements as well. So I think that's something that I just wanted to point out, as well for that. And then, like I said, the storage in classrooms is really important. In this particular AR4A option, you notice that the classrooms are all getting touched. And I think that's an important thing for us to understand is that whole area is getting touched and is basically going to be redesigned and done appropriately. And this is going to be for a significant amount of time where this will stand. And I think this is the only one, if I'm correct, that also addresses some of the band and chorus and art spaces as well, I believe. This is the only one that would touch those spaces.
One more thing that we haven't mentioned yet is this one does not need modulars because you'd be building the new middle school wing, then you would not have to spend money to have those 6 temporary classrooms. So there's a win in the amount of disruption that's happening to the learning and cost for that phasing.
So, spoiler alert, AR4A is the option we would recommend. The ad reno outlined in 4A is the only one, aside from a new facility, that would meet the current and future needs of the schools, that would align with the MSBA template. Their metrics are 150 square foot facility is appropriately sized for, what we're looking for. And it would update this facility to become a facility that supports the 21st century learning that our students need to be doing. So it would create the type of facility that our kids require to succeed, and frankly, what our kids deserve.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to ask for a question. Sorry.
Well, I think there were questions during, and comments during.
Okay.
And we can work to get that information on the types of things that aren't happening, that would happen, and the room capacities based on their size, the current size.
Right, then we have our superintendent report, our enrollment.
Yep, just enrollment for December. We have Clyde Downs at 609, up 3 from November. Middle school 267, down 1. High school up 3 to 296. Ties remains unchanged. Out of district remains unchanged. So we're at 1199. If we get one more kid to move in, we'll be at 1200. And I just wanted to update the committee on the tech collaborative.
Oh yeah, I saw that email.
Yeah, the board of directors will be meeting this week on Friday, and we'll be voting on whether or not to approve the applications of KP, King Philip Regional School District, and Sharon Schools to join the Tech Collaborative. Both districts fit well in terms of philosophy with the other districts in the collaborative, and we believe that they would, their inclusion would strengthen the collaborative. So, you know, if the board of directors votes to approve Sharon and KP to enter the collaborative, then the school committees in each district would have to vote to amend the collaborative agreement. You may recall we did that with
Yeah,
Accept
recently,
when
yeah.
Westboro joined Accept. Same thing for Tech.
Okay.
And then we have Mr. Wigan,
Who's ready?
financial report.
And I shall try to be succinct.
Okay, hit me, Terry.
I am projecting a positive fund balance right now of $4,718,
Oh,
which is good news.
yeah.
I think what is better news is for as many possible negative things that could happen to us in the next 6.5 months, I can see an equal number of positive things
Oh, that's
that could
good.
offset those things. So I actually think we're really in pretty good shape. You know, it's nice when you can see that there's a positive outlook to offset some of the possible negatives that might come down your way. Of course, nothing is certain.
Sure.
We have placed an order for the 2 vans.
Oh, good.
As soon as we get those, that will allow us to obviously reduce 2 of our contracted routes, and that's one of those positives, for example, that I'm talking about.
That's great.
Any questions?
When will you know more about the vans?
They're on their way.
Oh.
It's just a process of getting here,
Yeah.
as is with many vehicles right now.
Yeah, sure. I was just like, do they have it projected like the first of the year, or like end of
Probably after
January?
the first of the
Yeah,
year, yeah.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Just curious.
Other questions?
No?
I do expect to bring you fees at your first meeting in January. That's
Okay.
my hope.
Alright.
Okay?
Sounds good. That's good news, I guess. Oh, right, and I think that we have an executive session just listed on here to talk about collective bargaining with Unit A.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session for the purposes of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining Unit A.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Mr. Conroy.
Yes.
I am a yes, and Mr. Powers.
Yes.
All right. Are we gonna meet on December 17th, or you want to just meet after the first of the year? What do you think?
I
we
won't
need?
be here.
Yeah,
What you guys
I don't think,
Okay.
you know, I think we can wait till
Wait till you. Okay.
2025.
So our next meeting will be January 7th, then 2025. And happy holidays to everybody, and happy New Year, and we'll see you in the new year. But if you need bills, yeah, if you need bills signed, we'll come.
All right.